We have shown that it is very likely that the cesium canister is missing from the XYZ warehouse. This is a barely likely indicator that the cesium canister is used in a project at the company without being checked out from the XYZ warehouse. So we have a favoring argument with inferential force barely likely, the minimum between the probability of the missing hypothesis and its relevance. On the other hand, we have evidence from Grace, the vice president for operations at XYZ, who tells us that while they have several projects involving hazardous materials, none uses cesium-137. This is disfavoring evidence for the top hypothesis. The relevance of this evidence item is certain because it directly contradicts the top hypothesis. We have no reason not to believe Grace, so let's assess the credibility of this evidence item as very likely. Thus, we also have a disfavoring argument with inferential force very likely, the minimum between the relevance and the credibility of the evidence item. To distinguish between the favoring argument and the disfavoring one, we put them under a green and a red square respectively. Because the inferential force of the disfavoring argument is higher than that of the favoring argument, we judge that the top hypothesis is lacking evidentiary support. Let us now consider the negation of the top hypothesis. It is not true that the cesium-137 canister is used in a project at the XYZ company without being checked out from the warehouse. In this case, the roles of the two arguments are reversed. The probability of this negation is obtained through a non-balanced judgment between the inferential forces of the two arguments. We conclude that the negation is very likely, that is, the cesium-137 canister very likely is not used in a project at the XYZ company. This shows the on-balance functions that can be automatically used by an argumentation system such as Cogent to balance favoring and disfavoring arguments or evidence. For example, if the inferential force of the favoring argument is very likely and that of the disfavoring one is likely, then the probability of the corresponding hypothesis is more than likely. In general, if the inferential force of the favoring argument or evidence is strictly greater than the disfavoring one, then the probability of the hypothesis is lowered based on the inferential force of the disfavoring argument or evidence. Also, if the inferential force of the disfavoring argument or evidence is equal to or greater than that of the disfavoring one, then one concludes that the hypothesis is lacking support. Once the analysis is completed, one has to develop an analysis report that summarizes the analysis. In general, the report starts with a conclusion. Cesium-137 canister likely stolen. Then it lists each of the considered hypotheses and summarizes the corresponding reason and the associated evidence. The missing cesium-137 canister was likely stolen with a truck from the warehouse of the XYZ company. Locksmith Clyde said that the lock of the hazardous material locker had been forced. The record of the security guard at the XYZ company indicates that a panel truck bearing Maryland license plate number MDC 578 was in the XYZ parking area on the day before the discovery of the missing cesium-1 canister. A video segment on the security camera of the XYZ warehouse shows a person loading a container into a U-Haul panel truck. It is very likely that the missing cesium-137 canister is not used in a project of the XYZ company without being checked out from the warehouse. Grace, the vice president for operations at XYZ, tells us that while they have several projects involving hazardous material, no one uses cesium. There is no evidence to suggest that the missing cesium-137 canister has been misplaced. The presented evidence-based reasoning theory is at the basis of the QARC system that you will use to solve intelligence analysis problems. The QARC system has two components, Cogent and Argupedia. You'll work in a team consisting of a lead analyst and several crowd analysts. The lead analyst will receive an informal problem description like the missing cesium canister. Then both the lead and the crowd analyst will use Argupedia to develop an informal argumentation that links the evidence to the top hypothesis. This argumentation is imported into Cogent, and the lead analyst will develop a formal argumentation as it was presented. Based on this formal argumentation, a report is generated in Cogent. This report is exported to Argupedia to be reviewed and revised by the lead and the crowd analysts. The lead analyst will then finalize the report, which is a solution of the intelligence problem.